So the Elder Scrolls universe we wanted to concentrate on was really a decision that came about with, when you look at the whole history, you don't want to impact what the single player games are going to do, because they're great, they're their own game. So we wanted to take a piece of history really and look at it like, where can we fit in? And there was this one slice of history called the Interregnum, where there wasn't a lot written about it already, and we thought that's a perfect place for our game to be, because that means characters kind of control their own destiny, or players control their own destiny. And so that was kind of how we came upon that particular part in history. And then the world is Tamriel, which is where all the Elder Scrolls games have taken place.
Let's talk about the 3 different classes that you guys have. The Templar, Dragon Knight, and the Sorcerer. What are some of the fundamental differences between each classes?
So that's funny.
In a nutshell, I know it's kind of a big question.
Yeah, so our class differences are such that it's really your starting point in the game. So, a class is us saying, here's 3 extra skill lines that you get to choose. And so what we do is we try to make it easy for people with these class choices to kind of create an archetype that they're used to. So a Dragon Knight is a little bit archetypical of, your fighter with the sword, and a Templar is kind of your healer. Your Nightblade is going to be your sneaky, and your Sorcerer is kind of going to be your magic user. But the trick is that in an Elder Scrolls game, there's a lot of freedom. So you'll be adding new skill lines as you adventure in the world. When you go to the Mages Guild, you'll add a Mages Guild skill line. You'll add a Fighters Guild skill line. If you become a werewolf or a vampire, you add that skill line. And so the class is just really that kind of beginning to kind of say, like, hey, here's about what I want to do. But then it's really just up to the player at that point to create what they want to do in the world. Yeah. When we look at character creation, one of the big things for us is, how do you stand out in the world as a player, right? And that's really important. So we wanted to make sure that we give you a lot of fine control to, whether you want to make your belly big or whether you want to make your shoulders broad, or, whatever your fantasy is. To go into it a little bit, they've done some studies where people kind of create characters that look like themselves. And so by giving people a lot of options, they're more able to create characters that look like themselves. And they put different spins on it, of course, but it's one of the big things of giving people a lot of different controls is to give them that freedom to stand out in the world. And that even occurs when you're growing, because you get to pick which weapons you want to choose and which armor you want to choose. So yeah, character creation is really that first part, your first introduction into the world to, this is how I'm going to stand out.
You mentioned multiplayer. Obviously, an MMO is a massively multiplayer game. How many friends can I play with?
All of them, and please play with all of them. But for a formalized group setting in our Overland, you can bring 3 other friends with you to do our dungeons. And if you want to go into our later content that's meant for bigger groups, right now what we're shooting for is about 24 players for that. So when you go into our Alliance War, which is the big war that takes place in Cyrodiil, and it's all player versus player. Again, you can have a group of 24 players with you, and so 24 of your friends, you can get in and just go tear up Cyrodiil, or go into hopefully the later content that we have opening up for large groups. The other big thing that we haven't really talked about is our adventure zones, and that's we've just kind of mentioned them briefly, but we want large group content there, for those large groups that want to have something to do, and so we've been working on that, and hopefully we'll have more details about it in the future.
So you had mentioned that you start off executed, and in the last Elder Scrolls game you were about to be executed. I mean, what do you guys have against people being alive? Why do you always want to kill people?
I think for us, it's just a fun nod to what's gone before. I think some players will definitely appreciate. They start out, and of course you're going to get out of the execution, right? Only this time, yeah, might not. And and that really sets up the story for Mola Ball Stealing Your Soul, which is this main quest that we have going through the game. And so as you progress through the game, you'll open up more and more of, maybe you call them chapters of the main quest, and you'll find out this ongoing story of how you get your soul back, and how this is actually all tied into these dark anchors and Mola Ball trying to pull Nirn into his world of Cold Harbor. And so that story is kind of what drives you. But again, if you don't want to participate in the main story for a while, you can just ignore it for a while and come back and it'll be there. So right now you can go to elderscrollsonline.com, sign up for the beta if you haven't already signed up. We have had quite a few signups, so for those people who have signed up, if you haven't been picked, please remember this is the early beta that we're in right now, and we just grow it in stages, and hopefully we will get to you. The response has been pretty overwhelming, so bear with us. Don't feel bad if you didn't get the invite. Hopefully we'll just be sending out more and more invites as we go throughout the course of the year.
Do you have a timeline for when you guys are going to enter the next phase of beta, or maybe go into open beta?
So right now, yeah, we're still in closed beta, so going into open beta will be some ways away, because what we do is we ramp up our players and we look to see how servers handle the load, how the game's doing, what things we need to tweak or change, and we kind of see the response. So it's hard to predict that. We've been going through several different stages, so I think we're in almost stage 3 of our beta right now. And there's a lot of different stages, so again, it's one of those things that we want to make sure we get right when it's released to the public. We want them to have a great game. So for people who've never played an MMO or never played an Elder Scrolls, the first thing I'd say is wake up. It's one of the most, I would say, accessible games you can play. The controls, hopefully, people will find are fairly easy to get into. I think the world is incredibly immersive. There's lots of humor in it. That it comes out, but it's also something you can really get into, just like a good book or a good movie. And I think that's one of the best things about what we do is it's a great form of entertainment, and taken on the whole, it's a cheap form of entertainment. I encourage anybody who hasn't played Elder Scrolls or an MMO, you should give it a shot. It's not going to eat your life. Just go ahead and try it out and take it in small doses, and then come join us.